This image that you see right here is that of a house designed in Australia by Fouché Architects. This is from last year, 2023, but it's a really cool project where the interior uses a material that's actually usually hidden in architecture. They're actually exposing it. So let's take a look at this and break everything down that we can see from this architecture. Now, right at first glance, we notice a really cool, unique volume. The palette is black. You have a little bit of neutral gray here in the foundation, and then you have what seems to be a metal, a standing seam roof maybe. But as you can see, it's not jumping out at you. It's not this palette that is contrasting nature, but it's also not blending in. So it's kind of very neutral. Then when we are looking at the actual volume itself, it's a very interesting form. It's not like a rectangle or anything. It's a very unique architectural form. In the next picture, this is right here, but from the side, you see that it has this really cool moment where you go from the exterior to the interior of the house, and you see how it creates like this transformation of the experience where you're completely outside, now you're semi outside, and now you're completely inside. So I thought that that was a really poetic gesture. I don't know if that was their intention for the poetics behind it, but I thought it was like a beautiful transformation, a transition of going from the outside to the inside. Now, when you look at this, your views are tremendous, right? And when you have blacks around like this, it does two things. The first is that it completely frames the space by creating almost like a vignette around this, making it feel like a photograph that you're looking at. But then the negative thing about doing that is that now you're absorbing a lot of this sunlight, so the spaces feel darker. You are outside, but and I'm not totally familiar with this project yet. I haven't fully dived into it yet, but I assume this is like a balcony that's outside of a major public space, so a lot of the light is needed to go into the space, and I don't think that that's going to function properly. I think this should have been a lighter color, and we'll see as we go through the pictures. Now, this is what I was talking about. The interior of the house uses OSB, which is oriented strand board. It's basically like plywood, but it's actually starting to become a little bit more popular. But basically, this is what's used for sheathing in architecture. So when you put up your stud walls, you basically put it on the outside, you nail it to the stud wall, and then you put your finish on top of it. And in this case, they didn't do that. In this case, they just leave it exposed. Now, why would they do that, right? It's like pretty crazy. My guess, it's probably budget. And at the end, we'll read what the architect had to say about this. So maybe they reference why they did this. But I mean, I think it's ugly. I'll be honest with you. I think OSB is hideous, but I do appreciate the fact that they use it, because the alternative would have probably been, if this is a budget constraint, the alternative would be to use a cheap material, which adds more to the cost anyway, and is probably nasty anyway because it's a cheap material. So they're like, screw it, let's just expose the OSB and call it a day. So it actually makes the space feel unique, and it adds to this like natural feeling that the project has, which tends to make it blend in a little bit more with nature. When you look at the spaces inside, there's nothing crazy. They're not going out of their way to like frame nature. They're not like, they don't have a huge floor to ceiling window here. They're very modest, very functional, very usable spaces. So this project, the concept of it seems to be creating a space that's fully functional, that allows you to enjoy the exterior when the means are there, right? Not spending all this money to create a porthole into the exterior. It seems to be very, very modest choice of space, and you can see that there's no weird thing going on with the space. It's just a couch, your kitchen, and a little fireplace over here, which has brick. I thought that would be the next picture, but there seems to be some tile here, and I assume that's like for the heat, right? Because otherwise that heat would transfer into nearing materials and it would be a problem. So I assume this is for that reason. It's functional. You can see here that this house, again, it doesn't contrast, nor does it blend into the site. It's just kind of there. And the shape, the shape of it, helps it kind of like blend in a little bit more, so to speak. So it's not trying to make like this crazy I'm here gesture, but it's also not trying to say like I'm not here. It's just, like there. Not sure how I feel, walking straight into a kitchen island, but what I do notice is that it does feel a little bit dark in there. And I think that has to do with what I told you about the balcony. So here it's much more lit up, but you can see a lot of this space is dark. And that's the only thing that I wish they would have added, is maybe some skylight or something, but maybe that was like too expensive to do. But it just, some of these spaces feel kind of dark. You can see that this kitchen island is made with block. It's, again, materials that you tend to tuck away into the structure of the architecture, are only hidden by finishes, and they're just exposing everything. It works. The thing is, you look at this and it kind of is ugly. I wouldn't say it works together nicely, but I would say that this is something that you could kind of grow to be indifferent about, or grow to love even, right? It is unique, and I appreciate that. I think it's funny that they like tried to at least put this art piece there to distract you a little bit from the finishes. Here's another shot. Really nothing. See, this is what I was talking about, the tile that's behind it. I'm sure that's for fire reasons. I could be wrong though. But yeah, this is some of the spaces. Again, nothing crazy going on. The bathroom is really, really nice. Looking at this bathroom, there's nothing like wild about it. It's pretty standard, except this feature here where you have like this louvered wall that's, operable. It's freaking awesome, to be honest with you. I think it's more about the experience and the architecture itself. This shower right here is phenomenal, right? When I look at spaces like this, I'm always like, if I was showering there, I'd be afraid that Bigfoot was staring at me from out here. But this glass is probably tinted or something. So, but I'd still feel, his presence there, out there in the wood. You look at this house and it's elevated, and you have like a carport here, and when I look at this, or probably storage, probably a carport, I look at this and I think like, man, a nice water feature would have been cool there, or some vegetation. But honestly, the more that I see the photographs of this house, it's all about form follows function, right? The reason that this house was designed the way that it is, with some minor specific details, is probably for functionality. They needed a carport, and this is where it was going to be. They weren't going to make a pool there or something like that, or they probably didn't even have the reason. It's just a very modest design, very modest project. Now, I'm very excited to see that they have nice big floor plans, because some of the other projects that we've looked at recently have terrible floor plans. This section doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't show anything really interesting, but maybe the floor plans do. So this is the Undercroft plan, ground floor basically. To be honest with you, I've never even heard that word, Undercroft plan. Okay, there's a driveway, water tank, storage and laundry, covered carport. So this block right here is your storage and laundry, and then this is your covered carport over here. And then upstairs you have driveway, entry, bath, bed, storage, kitchen and dining, living, and outdoor entertaining, which is number 9. Outdoor entertaining. Okay, so just like, chill out there, have some fun, some drinks, play some poker, whatever. So you look at this plan, there's nothing crazy about it. Like, it's the craziest thing is just the turn of the axis, and that's probably for functionality. It's probably because the site dictated that the plan had to work this way. You look at the bathroom, it's, nothing crazy about it. Like, there's nothing wild that they're doing in this plan. Everything is pretty standard, and with the exception of this angle here, like, why would they do this? And when you look at it, you realize it's because if they would have just made this straight, yes, the storage here, the storage closet would have been more functional, but then you would have been like more enclosed in this space. So what they do here is that they create like a panoramic opening with this angle, and then they put a window here so that when you come into this house, you're being like received. It's opening itself to you and exposing all the elements to you. So a nice gesture there, where the only real thing that takes a hit is these couple closets here, but I thought it was a really good movement. So let's see what the architects had to say about this. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but this house was designed in 2003 and or finished in 2003 rather, and it's for a young couple and their father-in-law, father/father-in-law, and this will eventually be his home. Now, it's located on a 6-hectare site, but only a very small portion of the site is usable, which presented like a very rough constraint for them. Like they only had, out of that gigantic site, only this little site was usable. It said that there's a bushfire threat on the dwelling that placed pressure on their already tight budget. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. Everything here had to be functional. There was no time for, like, expressing the art of architecture. It was supposed to be about the function of the space. But at the same time, the interesting thing is that they took time to design something unique, right? Because when architects are met with budget, when you hear the word budget, the first thing that you want to do is not spend time doing anything wild, because your client is probably just going to X everything anyway. So just do something standard, some cookie cutter, something that you've done before, call it a day. Everybody's happy. You get your money, client's happy, whatever. So I really appreciate that they used the materials that they used to kind of, say, hey, look, we have a budget, but we can still create meaningful spaces here that are unique, right? Creating unique architecture that is awesome. Like it's really cool that they were able to do this. And I'm honestly impressed that they chose to do this. Another constraint that they had was that because of the bushfires, I'm going to read this part here. It says, as well as the 0 canopy setback we are going to achieve in squeezing a dwelling into the only developable area of the property, meant that the home had to achieve a BZ rating, the highest possible bushfire requirement, an expensive undertaking that had to be carefully navigated given the budget constraints. Then they say the design of the internal program is free from excess. A linear living space houses a kitchen with dining built into the island bench, and a lounge area with built-in seating, fireplace, and TV arranged around its perimeter to maximize space. So as you can see, this is a great example of when you're told you have a budget, you have all these constraints. They had to deal with the site. They had to, deal with these stringent ratings that they needed to achieve, and yet they're able to create a really unique piece of architecture that is not only cool, but it's also very functional. And honestly, if I was the client in this case, I'd be honored to own something like this, and I'd be excited to use these spaces. They're not grand spaces, but they're very humble, they're very modest, and I appreciate this project so much because of that. So as always, I'm curious to see what you guys think about this project. Let me know down in the comments, and till next time, peace out.